Hello again. Welcome back to Civics. If you've noticed, I'm not wearing my American bow tie in the this video and the last one, and that's because it's Halloween and I'm dressed up in my Halloween costume. My son is being Harry Potter, so I'm being Draco Malfoy, who is having a rough time with being middle-aged. Uh, so that's why I'm wearing this today instead of my normal Civics garb. So don't worry, the bow tie will return. Anyway, in the last video, we started talking about Supreme Court cases that were important to the history of the United States. And today we're going to talk about two more of those, and in the next several videos afterwards. But here we got two more today. So the first case for today is the one called Ogden versus Gibbons, and it happened in 1824. And this case is important because it really defines and expands the power of the Commerce Clause. That is, it gives Congress the right to regulate interstate commerce. Basically, what happened was New York had passed these laws that gave specific people the right to use waterways in New York that went from New York to other states for trade. And basically, Ogden wanted Gibbons to not use this river because he had been given the sole authority to use it. And Gibbons is like, I want to be able to use this waterway. You can't stop me from using this waterway. That's ridiculous. And the courts ended up holding that under the Commerce Clause, Congress gets to regulate navigation amongst interstate commerce. So since the river or whatever body of water they were using could be used to travel interstate, Congress had the authority to allow Gibbons to use the waterway, and New York couldn't restrict it because it's not constitutional for them to do that. It's a congressional power. So basically, it kind of helped to define the Commerce Clause. And once again, as I talked about the Commerce Clause in earlier videos, the Commerce Clause has allowed Congress to do a lot of things that they weren't explicitly told they could do in the Constitution, like create the FDA and regulate lots of different things it's a good thing that they're regulating. So this case is kind of setting the groundwork for that kind of stuff in the future. So that's a reason why it's a very important case. The next case, we're going to skip forward a bunch of years here, and we're going to get to 1857, and we're going to talk about the Dred Scott decision, which is one of the most monumental and turning point cases in American history. Now, the reason why is this. Dred Scott was a slave, and he traveled to a free state with his master. And when he got to the free state, he declared himself free and said, I don't have to follow you anymore. I'm now in free state territory. You don't have any power over me anymore. Well, that wasn't great. It was good. He should have done that. Good for him. But his master, Sandford, did not like the fact that he had done this. And of course, he was like, no, you have to come back to the South and you're still my property. You can't do this. And so Dred Scott sued his master in the courts, and it got all the way up to the Supreme Court, and this is the decision that was handed down. The court said that citizenship in the U.S. was never meant to include black people, and so no black person can actually use the courts because they're not citizens. Not a great decision, obviously, right? Incredibly racist, incredibly wrong. People who are born in the United States deserve citizenship. People shouldn't be property, obviously. Okay, but back then, right, that's what the Supreme Court had decided. So what did that mean? Well, basically, it meant that all of the compromises, all of the things that Congress had done over the last, several decades to keep the country together and mitigate the fighting over slavery were basically undone. It took all rights away from black people. It basically made it so that slavery could be anywhere. It wasn't great for those compromises. And so at that point, it made the Civil War inevitable. It was kind of the last straw on this large stack of hay. And 3 years later, the Civil War begins. So this case ended up creating the necessity of armed conflict rather than trying to abate it and hold together the country diplomatically. So yeah, not a great case. Really sad, dark time in American history. Absolutely awful. So So yeah, those are going to be our two cases for today. We had the Ogden versus Gibbons one, which is about the Commerce Clause, and then we had Dred Scott versus Sandford. One more thing about that one, actually. This Dred Scott case is actually the reason that the 14th Amendment ended up getting proposed and then passed, was because in this case they said, hey, citizenship isn't granted to black people. It never was meant to be. And so the 14th Amendment defined citizenship specifically to make sure that everybody is granted citizenship within the United States. And so if this case had never happened, the 14th Amendment might not exist. It probably would have ended up existing in some way, shape, or form, but this gave it a real reason to make sure there was some sort of legal precedent in the Constitution that stopped courts from using this case as precedent to deny people citizenship and rights. So that's another good reason why we want to talk about this one, defining the role of citizenship in our country and how that's changed over time. Thank you so much for watching this episode again of Civics. The next couple of episodes, like I said, are going to be about some more court cases that are important. And then after that, we'll move on, do some other stuff, some fun stuff about elections and things like that. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.